Hello, my name is Andrew Thake from Minds and Money. Delighted to be joined today by John Proust, who is the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Japan Gold. Delighted to have you with us today, John.
Nice to join you, Andrew.
John, in the background, the first thing I see is a map of Japan. Why should investors consider Japan as a mining investment destination?
Andrew, Japan is an ideal location for investors to consider for specifically gold in our case, and new discoveries, new potential discoveries. Several reasons. Number one, the geologic setting of Japan is an ideal fertile setting where the Japanese islands sit atop tectonic plates that are one subducting under another. So there's lots of movement, there's lots of volcanism, lots of volcanic activity, and lots of faulting. And that creates pathways for mineralized fluids that are buried deeper in the earth to flow up towards the surface through those cracks and that movement and make their deposits closer to the surface. So that's number one. Number two is that Japan, as a gold producing nation, has been very active since the 1500s. However, that was truncated by the Second World War when all the 76 operating gold mines in Japan at that time were closed by government decree in 1943. This was to allow the government to be able to move the workers into base metal mines and factories to support the war. And after the war, only a handful of the mines reopened. 64 of them remain closed today. And the country itself really focused its activities after the war more on going into the international community and bringing natural resources back to Japan to rebuild the country and to focus on building smelters and other things that would support that initiative. So the domestic gold exploration business and gold mining business really went by the wayside. That all changed, and here's my third point. In 1981, when there was no exploration in Japan, and even the few mines that had opened after the war had been mined out or were uneconomic, so they were closed, the Japanese Metal Mining Agency of Japan did a small program, an exploratory program that was more scientific in nature down in the southern island of Kyushu, which is over that shoulder. And on that island, what they were doing is, because these islands are volcanic, they wanted to drill a vertical hole through the volcanic material to see how deep or how thick was that package and where was the basement. So they drilled a vertical hole about 200 meters, and lo and behold, that's where they hit the basement. But that's where they also hit what is today one of the highest grade tier 1 gold mines in the world. It was the discovery hole for the Hishikari gold mine. The Hishikari gold mine is a mine that's owned by Sumitomo Metal Mining. It's the only operating gold mine in Japan today, and it's produced since its opening in 1985 over 8 million ounces of gold at an average grade of between 30 and 40 grams per ton, and still has approximately 5 million ounces of reserves remaining, so a 13 million ounce ore body. My final point there is that in the past, and we as explorers have to assume that all the mines or all the areas of Japan have been looked over by prospectors historically. Mm-hmm. And all the mines that were operating in Japan were things that were poking out of the ground. The Hishikari mine was really an example of one of the first opportunities that I would say was not as obvious. So it was more of a hidden or blind target. And they were fortunate by some drilling success to encounter that, but it wasn't something that was poking out of the ground. So our stage of exploration is the new era, which is looking for those discoveries that are not poking out of the ground, but using the science, the technology, the innovations, and the modeling that's occurred, since the 1940s to now. So vastly underexplored is the context I'm setting for you.
So tell us a little bit about Japan Gold. Whereabouts are you currently looking for and exploring within Japan? And perhaps tell us when Japan Gold was set up and how long have you been in business for?
Right. So in 2012, the Japanese government changed the Mining Act in Japan for the first time in the country's history to allow foreign companies to come in and hold 100% of prospecting rights, or mining rights or to own mines. And we were the first group in the world to answer that call. And when we went to Japan, we were the only ones that came. So for 4.5 years, we had Japan to ourselves. And that gave us the opportunity to study the government records, which they were very kind to allow us to access, of all the closed gold mines, to look at the same style of mine as the Hishikari gold mine. The term is a low sulfidation epithermal gold mine. And that's the type of mine that we're interested in seeking in Japan. So we were able to study the 64 closed mines and see which ones fit that metric. And then also we were able to provide input on the permitting process in terms of how you could permit a new prospecting right in Japan and advance it. So we were very active in that particular way. Once we'd done that initial reconnaissance, we started applying for all the key areas that we felt were important in Japan. And today we have 32 projects that are effectively dominant in all 5 major gold districts of Japan. We cover approximately 3,000 square kilometers of the best mineral rights in the country. And that's really allowed us to set ourselves up as the predominant player in Japan and attract global interest to our activities. And so as we've assembled this portfolio, some of the largest mining companies in the world have come to us and wanted to know more about Japan. The first one that we got involved with was a company called Gold Corp, which was taken then several months later, taken over by Newmont. So today, Newmont owns a 10% stake in our business, and we gave Newmont the right of first refusal to be our partner on 2 projects that they identified in that early reconnaissance through Gold Corp. The second thing that happened was just over 2.5 years ago, we completed a competitive process to find a countrywide alliance partner, because we were building this enormous portfolio, just a fabulous large portfolio that required larger companies to come in with us and advance. And so we wanted someone to be our partner. And 5 companies stepped up to compete for that role, including Newmont and Barrick. And ultimately, we selected Mark Bristow and Barrick to be our countrywide alliance partner. In that instance, the way that evolved was that Barrick was available to, the agreement, was as follows. First of all, they had to look at all the remaining projects that we had in our portfolio. And over what became a 2.5-year time period, they had to evaluate and advance all of those projects and then determine which ones had the potential to host a tier 1 or tier 2 ore body. And a tier 1 gold ore body is 5 million ounces of gold, with the opportunity to produce 500,000 ounces of gold a year for 10 years or greater. Tier 2 is 3 million ounces or greater of gold, and again, 300,000 ounces a year for 10 years or greater. So we were delighted that at the end of August in 2022, Barrick selected 6 of our projects that they felt had that potential to host a tier 1 or tier 2 ore body. So that's the genesis of how Japan Gold got to where we are today.
Having Mark Bristow's support is, to me, a really key buying signal as far as Japan Gold is concerned. I mean, obviously, Mark Bristow's reputation within the gold mining industry is second to none. So I guess my next question is, what are your plans for the next 6 to 18 months? Is it just as simple as just go and follow those recommendations of Mark Bristow and Barrick, or is it also further plans that you have up your sleeve?
Well, yeah, an excellent question, and it's really, we've got several different prongs, but I think just one comment to make, and sort of tying in with Mark Bristow, but also tying in with Japan and where the stage of the industry is in Japan today. Today, as I mentioned, there's only the one gold mine, the Hishikari gold mine, that operates in Japan, but it is a tier 1 ore body at 13 million ounces, and it has wonderfully high grade at 30 to 40 grams. It was identified it's partially in the volcanics and it's partially in the basement. So it's right at that interface between the volcanics and the basement, but clearly a large portion of it is in the basement. And that's brand new thinking to Japan, because Historically, all the gold mines have been found much more shallow in the shallow volcanic package. So to find a new horizon that might have really large ore bodies of high grade is something that's very tantalizing. And so, and to give you an example, the second largest gold mine in Japan, behind Hishikari and 13 million ounces, was a mine called Sado, which was about 2.5 million ounces. So dramatically smaller. So that's, I just wanted to sort of set the stage. So obviously Barrick is there because they think with their, their international skill set and their global coverage and understanding of these types of ore bodies, along with the portfolio we put together, there's the potential to make new major discoveries. Our plan for 2023 is as follows. Barrick has selected the 6 projects that I mentioned, and the evaluation of those projects didn't include drilling. It included huge programs of geochemistry and geophysics to really zero in on the best targets in our portfolio that Barrick could identify. And so our program for 2023 is we've used advanced geophysics since the decision was made to really target our drill programs. And I expect at the end of February or very early in March, we will be drilling the first project for Barrick. And hopefully it's one of several projects that we'll be moving on quite quickly. So we've already mobilized equipment, personnel, and we have weekly regular meetings with Barrick to really define our activities going forward, not only on that first project we're going to drill, but also to prepare other projects for that type of advancement. So that's the first piece of our plan. The second piece is that the 2 projects that are outside the Barrick Alliance, those 2 projects, we've advanced those quite nicely. We found multiple prospects, and so we'll continue to drill those prospects using our dollars. So when they're Barrick projects, Barrick fully funds those projects. With the 2 projects that are aligned with Newmont, Newmont provides us technical support, but we provide the financing for those 2 projects. So then that brings us to the remaining basket of projects we call the other projects. And that's approximately 23 projects. Now, those projects are ones that Barrick has done that evaluation of geochemistry and geophysics, but which they felt those projects didn't meet their criteria. Having said that, it's an exceptional portfolio of opportunities that even Barrick would agree really deserve further study and advancement. So what we're doing is looking at several things there. One is we're looking at which projects might we want to advance ourselves independently as Japan Gold. Would we be interested in selling some projects and adding more capital to our treasury? Or there's a number of other companies that unfortunately couldn't be our alliance partner in the past, but might be good partners going forward. And should we enter into new alliances to accelerate the advancement of that portfolio? So all these things are under study. And in order to do that, what we've done is we've put together discrete data sets on each of those other projects that include historical work done, all the work done by Barrick, and then the programs or the plans that we propose going forward, so we can very carefully have those discussions with other groups as we evolve.
Mm-hmm. Who are your key investors? Are they Japanese investors? Are they foreign investors, retail, institutional, or all of the above?
I think all of the above, but what I would say, Andrew, for a junior exploration company like Japan Gold, we have a number of unique things. And one of the unique things that we have is our shareholder base. And we've been very deliberate and very fortunate to have the type of investors we brought to the table. And I'll give you an example. So I mentioned that we have Newmont as a 10% shareholder in our company. And if Newmont drops below 10%, then they lose that right of first refusal on those 2 projects. So I think that's unlikely. The next thing is that we have another 55% of our company in some of the best institutional hands in the world. And I'll just give you an example. BlackRock is a large shareholder. 2 very large Japanese funds are managed. RCF from Denver, Regal from Australia, Rothschilds from Europe. Equinox Partners is our largest shareholder at 15%. And it's quite a long list. And those groups are all significant shareholders with us because as we develop relationships with Barrick or Newmont or others, and we hopefully move towards building mines and going into production, we're going to be required to put forward our capital to build our mines. And in order to do that, we're going to need partners that have very deep pockets. And so these groups are all there with what they call toehold positions as investors in our company now, but fully expecting that we're going to call upon them to provide the large capital to build mines. And I'll give you an example. Under the Barrick Alliance arrangement, Barrick has to solely fund the advancement of a project at least to pre-feasibility. That's where they earn their first interest. So that's where they're going to earn their first interest. When they complete and fund a pre-feasibility study on a project, they get a 51% stake. When they further go on and complete a bankable feasibility study, then they can earn a 75% interest in the project, all of course at their cost. At that point, we'd have to provide our 25% of the mine build. And that's where our shareholder base, this very unique shareholder base, comes in. 28% of our company is owned by the public, and management owns 7% of the company. So we have a very, very strong shareholder structure of focused groups that are well known in this space. Now, I mentioned uniqueness to Japan, or unique to Japan Gold, and I just wanted to touch on a couple of unique aspects of Japan Gold. Number one, we're the first mover in a safe geopolitical country. That is at the top of many investors' lists. Secondly, it's a country that's had a history of high-grade gold mining, but it's been on hold for almost 80 years now. So there hasn't been modern exploration, modern tools, modern exploration to really advance it. Thirdly, there's new theories that I've mentioned that are where large new deposits could be made. Going on from there, I would say we're the only junior company that I'm aware of that has the two largest gold miners deeply embedded in it, with Barrick and with Newmont. And that involvement of those two companies and the involvement of the large institutional mix that we have, I would say for any investor, really de-risks the investment opportunity, knowing that those significant groups have had a chance to really look at what we're doing in Japan and have decided to come along on the journey with us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I really like from listening to you today, Johnny, is you've got, fantastic, sort of backstory about, Japanese history in mining, and specifically within the gold mining industry. Really like the Japan Gold story. Really like the fact that it's just got support of key players, whether it's mining companies such as Barrick and Newmont, but also, key like investors such as BlackRock and RCF. Great management team. And when you add all those things together, it's just something that you just don't really see within other sort of like mining opportunities within the gold space that I can go and think of. So I would really encourage all the investors listening into this TV interview to go and check you out. You will be coming along to Mines and Money Miami, but if they want to find out more about Japan Gold in the interim, your ticket is at the bottom of the screen, as is your website address, www.japangold.com. And we really look forward to seeing you at Miami and wish you all the best for 2023. That was John Proust, the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Japan Gold. Thank you very much for your time today, John.
Thank you, Andrew.